Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this brief presentation from the Utah Insurance Department and Captive Insurance Association. My name is Travis Wegkamp. I'm the Director of the Captive Division for the Insurance Department. And joining me today is Ross Elliott, Vice President of the Utah Captive Insurance Association, as well as Brandy Alderson, Secretary of the Association. Today we just want to do a brief update of some things that are taking place within the association and the division, and thought this would be a good way to share that information with all of you. To start, we'll discuss some legislative updates currently taking place in this legislative session. Some of you were aware that we were seeking a pool captive type certificate of authority, as well as Series LLC legislation for a captive ownership or a captive corporation structure. Those will not be pursued at this time. However, we're putting, while we have that pause on, we're going to continue to look into adding those in future sessions, hopefully next year. We just want to make sure we take the time to get the proposed language correct and any sort of other regulatory issues involving the addition of those two types of structures. Another change taking place is the definition of securities that qualify to meet the minimum capitalization requirement. The change simply removes the phrase and the allowance of other evidence of indebtedness of a private corporation domiciled in the United States. We felt that was a little broad and vague there, and so it remains the same as it has been, with the exception of the removal of that one type right there. Okay, annual filings and applications. Most of you are aware, we've tried to let everybody know to please use a Chrome web browser when doing online applications or annual filing forms. This helps avoid a lot of issues with the forms. However, if you're using the Chrome browser and you're continuing to have bugs or issues with the forms, by all means, please let us know, and we'll run that up the ladder and make sure that our IT guys look into that. We're hoping this year to get testing done on those other browsers like Internet Explorer, Safari, and Firefox, so that those will be optimized as well, and you don't have to stick simply to the Chrome. It takes some time and process to get that done, and hopefully we should have the time this year to take care of that. Many of you know that the prior year roll forward of the balance sheet data, a feature that was used on the annual statements last year, has been disabled due to some security concerns, and how that worked wasn't able to transition very well between different users. As well as there was an issue with the server. I think many of you noticed that a couple weeks ago the site, the forums were offline for a few days. It was discovered that the server was supposed to write that data to a database that would then store it. However, it was discovered when they reset the server that it wasn't doing that properly. It was just saving all the information to the server. But since it had never been reset or turned off, nobody noticed the issue because the server just, whenever you needed that information, it was there and the server could call it up. However, that was discovered and it's been fixed now. So that did affect the prior year annual statements. It didn't affect the statements of economic benefit, just the annual statements. So all of those from 2015 and older have been removed from the system because the data wasn't correct. However, there's no need to do anything. We have all that information. We saved PDF copies of everything. So if for some reason you don't have a copy of that, of one of your captives, and you need that information, you can go ahead and contact us and we can provide that for you. All right. A new addition on the annual statement forms, page 2 of the annual statement on the balance sheet for assets. There's a new box titled Amount of Reported Investments Eligible to Satisfy Minimum Capitalization Requirement. With the change in the legislation last year, it's not just cash equivalents, and letters of credits that can satisfy that minimum $250,000 requirements. Some securities are allowed now as well, like we just talked about. And so if when completing the annual statement you don't, or the company doesn't have the necessary amounts in cash and cash equivalents or letter of credits, you can then, in this box, take an amount, whatever amount that's in bonds, stock, or other short-term investments. If those qualify per the definition in the code to satisfy the minimum capitalization requirement, you can enter that amount in this box. And it's just for reporting purposes. It doesn't then total up again into the final assets total. It's just there to show that the company meets the minimum capitalization requirement in the required form. But however, if you're reporting $250,000 or more in cash and cash equivalents or the letter of credit, there's no need to put anything in that box if you don't want to, because the requirement's already been satisfied with that cash. And just a couple reminders on annual statements and captive applications. Please use the online forms. That's the required and preferred method for submitting those. However, exceptions can be made if the website's unavailable for a significant amount of time and you've obtained prior approval to go ahead and submit in some other form, like a PDF version. Also, please fully complete each form, referring specifically to the lines of coverage pages for both the application and annual statement. A lot of times we're just getting some language in there that says, please see attachment. And then even in that case, then the attachment isn't really there. It's just we have to go looking for it in the business plan or at the end of the statement. But if you'll please fill it out completely, that significantly helps us in our review process. And that's how we maintain that information in our system. And then we can easily and quickly go find that information when we need it. Allows us to respond better to any sort of requests or necessary things you guys might need us to respond to and get back to you with in a timely fashion. Okay, the website redesign. It hasn't happened yet, but we're currently in the process of switching hosting on our captive website. I don't know a whole lot about it. Those of you that maybe do know that we're switching to WordPress hosting, which is a much more user-friendly version or a hosting device than what we currently have. For the most part, it's going to look the same as it is now. However, it'll give us a lot more control over editing and designing things and adding and just getting information on there that could be beneficial to everybody and make things simpler and easier to do that. As it says here, we intend to use it more with news and updates, as well as making templates, forms, and other reference tools more easily available. So as you get on that website, you may see a slight change in the near future, but for the most part, it should still look and navigate the same. Okay, one thing we're planning on doing this in the next little while here over the next year is to standardize our procedures, going over, reviewing those, and making improvements where possible. As our domicile continues to grow and new staff added, this will lessen the disruption when analysts are reassigned and make it simpler in that regard. For example, we intend to review and standardize some processes, including the filing of Form A's for ownership and or control changes and company dissolutions. With the Form A's, as many of you are probably aware now after this recent change in the 831B stuff, our captive chapter doesn't specifically address Form A changes. As such, we have to refer to the traditional chapter on that subject. And it's been revealed, and we've seemed to notice that much of what is required there appears to be somewhat unnecessary or unrelated to a captive ownership change. So we wanted to work with the Commissioner's office and the AG's office to kind of refine that process as far as captives are concerned, and hopefully streamline it and make it a little more simpler for everybody. With dissolutions, it was noted there are some differences in the way dissolutions were handled by the department. With the final letters that are issued. So we're going to review that process as well. That's one of our key ones we're going to look at and make sure that we've got everybody in our department, all our analysts on the same page and how to process those and close those out and make life easier for everybody. So as these processes are standardized, we'll provide updates to any necessary documents on the captive website. We'll upload that info on what's been changed, if anything, and the correct process for doing it in the future, and make those templates and things available to you on the website now that we've got much more control over the use of that. All right, now everybody's current favorite topic right now, the IRS Notice 2016-66. In summary, it essentially labels all captives taking the 831B election as transactions of interest requiring disclosure. Our insurance department, the commissioner, we took a bit of weren't quite happy with that notice, I guess, to put it that way. We found it to be a bit broad, vague, and confusing, also untimely in its issuance and reporting, especially when accounting for some of the ongoing confusion regarding the 831B changes that resulted from the PATH Act. As many of you know, the original disclosure deadline was January 30th. Fortunately, that has been extended by 90 days. And just to inform everybody, if they haven't seen it, I think it was made available and was issued publicly, but the Utah Insurance Commissioner, Todd Kaiser, did sign and send a letter to IRS Commissioner Koskinen and Acting Secretary of the Treasury Zubin that expressed Utah's displeasure and concerns with the letter and the adverse effect we feel it will have on Utah's captive industry. And it was asked in that letter that the notice be rescinded. We also copied each member of Utah's congressional delegation on that letter with the hopes that it'll garner their attention and involvement, and hopefully they can do what they can on their end to talk to the IRS with regard to this notice. And at this point, I will turn the next slide over to Brandy.
Thanks, Travis. The Western Region Captive Insurance Conference will be held in Salt Lake City this year. The Western Region is comprised of Utah, Arizona, and Missouri, and the conference travels between those states each year. The conference will address a number of business, risk, and captive topics, and it's a great opportunity to network with captive owners, service providers, and regulators. This year's topics will include Captive Owner Roundtable, discussions around the recent changes to IRS requirements for small captives, the science of decision making, discussion around the risks related to the growth in the shared economy, interacting with businesses like Uber and Airbnb, actuarial methodologies, and a session around captive best practices. Early bird registration is open now until March 31st. If you register early, it provides a $100 discount, and association members receive an additional $150 discount on conference registration fees. If you'd like to see more details about the event or register, all of that can be found at www.westerncaptiveconference.org. Now I'll turn the time over to Ross Elliott, the Vice President of the Utah Captive Insurance Association.
Thank you, Brandy. Utah is fortunate to serve as the domicile of choice for a major segment of the captive industry company community. One of the responsibilities of this industry leadership is to defend and protect the companies that we as service providers are privileged to serve. The logical extension of this responsibility has been the formation of the Utah Captive Insurance Association. One of our primary objectives is to further industry opportunities and to provide educational forums for its members, including the service providers, captive owners, and parent companies. In May, we will host the renowned Western Region Captive Insurance Conference that Brandy mentioned here in Salt Lake City. The speakers and panelists are selected experts. Their topics are timely. In addition, the opportunities to network and collaborate are abundant. Please plan to attend. As Brandy mentioned, the registration, lodging, and program details are shown on her prior slide. Today, as an association, we're being sought out by various industry groups to lend our voice and support on some current and critical issues. As you're aware, some of these issues include burdensome requests from the IRS for captive and parent company organization, coverage, and ownership details to be filed on a nearly immediate basis. As Travis mentioned, the captive division and the Utah Insurance Department have filed a letter with the IRS on behalf of the association and the association members. We have also filed a second letter with the IRS, and all congressmen have been copied on both letters, seeking relief from the burdensome requests. Other legislative and regulatory concerns have arisen in the past years and will continue to serve us. These issues have been and will continue to be proactively addressed through lobbying, networking, and education. To better address and meet the needs of its members, we have reorganized the UCIA and refocused its attention. We now have a complete board and officers representing every facet of our industry, including owners, managers, auditors, actuaries, and former regulators. But with all of this experience and industry support, we still need you. We invite you to join and support this association of captive insurance professionals, owners, and interested supporters. As you know, an association needs finances and resources to succeed. We have some great resources, but we also need your membership and your dues. With your participation in those finances, we can acquire the talent and assets to provide quality educational opportunities and to mount a united front against some of the incursions that we face today. We hope that you've found the content of this video to be timely and helpful. On behalf of the Captive Division of the Utah Insurance Department and the Utah Captive Insurance Association, we thank you for taking the time to review our presentation today. If you have questions, comments, or suggestions, please feel free to contact one of us at the site listed or at the phone number on this page. Thank you again.